Hello all, welcome to this session. In this session, I am going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, what are the different types of variables we have in Java? Let me answer. At a high level, variables in Java can be classified or categorized as local variables and global variables. So what are local variables? The variables that we create inside the methods and the scope of the variables is up to the methods only are local variables. And what are global variables? The variables that you create directly under the class and outside the methods and the scope of these variables is throughout the class are global variables. So at a high level, the variables in Java can be categorized as local variables and global variables, while local variables are created inside the methods and their scope is or their accessibility is up to the methods only in which they are created, whereas global variables are directly created under the class and outside the methods and their accessibility is throughout the class. And further, we can divide these global variables into two types. One is static global variables and instance global variables. Instance means object related global variables. Static means class related global variables. Fine. So these are the different types of variables we have in Java at a high level. Variables in Java can be categorized as local, global, and further global variables can be classified as static and instance. Now let me practically demonstrate all this variety of variables for you now in this Eclipse IDE. For that, I'll create a new class. Okay. I'll simply name this class as variables demo, some random name. Click on finish. And inside this class, I'm going to create a method public void. I'll say sample one method. And two more methods I'll create just for the sake. Public void sample two method. Then public void sample three method. Okay. Sample three method like this. Some variables, some methods I created, some sample methods I created. Now I'm going to create a variable inside this method. For example, if I say int a is equal to 10, this variable is declared or created inside a method. Hence, this variable is known as local variable. Variables which are created inside the methods, okay, are local variables. So what is the scope of this particular local variable? Up to this method only, guys. If you can access inside the method only in which it is created. For example, I'm accessing it here, right? System.out.println a, if I say, you see there, I'm not getting any error and I'm able to access it. Okay, variable a can be accessed within the method. But if I try to access the same variable outside this method, let's say in this method, I would like to access this variable a, system.out.println a, you see, I'm going to get an error. A cannot be resolved to a variable. Why I'm getting this compiler error? Why? Because the variable is, this particular variable is created or declared inside this method. The accessibility or scope of this particular variable is up to this method, starting of the method to the ending of the method, you can use the variable. But outside this method, anywhere if you try to use, you will not be able to access it. Okay, this is a problem. Local variables are local to the methods in which they are created. Whereas if I create a global variable, for example, int b is equal to 20, this variable is a global variable. Okay, we can call this variable as a global variable. Why? Because I created this global variable. Okay, I created this global variable directly under the class. That's why it is a global variable. And what is the scope of this or lifespan or scope or accessibility of this global variable? You can access this global variable throughout the class, guys. Anywhere in the class you can access. For example, you can access this variable in this method, in this method, in this method, because all these methods are part of the same class. Throughout the class, throughout the entire class, you can access this global variable. For example, here if I say system.out.println b, I'm not getting any error. Okay, I can access B. Here also, if I say system.out.println B, I can access. Throughout the class, I can access the global variable, guys. Okay. Now you understood what are local variables, what are global variables, and their scope. Okay, local variables are local to the methods only. Their scope is local to the methods. Whereas global variables, as the name global means, the scope of the variables or accessibility of the variable is up throughout the entire class. Okay, fine. Now these global variables can be further classified. As I mentioned here, these global variables can be further classified as static and instance. Instance means object related. Static means class related. Okay, the common variables, variables having some common values across the objects, right? That variables we generally create as static variables. Remaining all are which change to object are instance variables. Okay, fine. Let's not go into the details, but at a high level, static variables, we have static variables and instance variables under the global variables. Okay. Fine. So if I put a static keyword here, this will become a static global variable. Okay. Static global variable. And if I say int c is equal to 30, if I am not providing any static keyword here before, you see this is a global variable, this is a global variable because these variables are declared directly under the class outside the method. So they are global variables. But if you mention the static okay, modifier keyword before this global variable, it becomes a static global variable, whereas this one will become a instance global variable. Okay, instance means object. Okay, another name for instance is object, object related global variable. Static is for class related, a common variable you can say. Okay, common kind of global variable. Okay, is a static. For example, if you are creating variables related to class, car, let's say. Okay, number of wheels of almost all cars is same, like 4. Such kind of common kind of values can be stored in static global variables. The things like car to car, what will change? Color of the car will change, model of the car will change, price of the car will change, mileage of the car will change. Class to class, if the details are changing, we have to store those kind of values in the object memories instead of class memories, where common memory, class memory. We have to store the common type of values like number of wheels in that car example, whereas the values which keep changing like color, model, price, mileage, etc., can be declared or created under the class as instance global variables, object related global variables, because for every object the values will change. Okay, fine. Anyhow, let's not complicate this, but hope you got the idea, like the variables which are created inside the methods and whose scope is up to that particular method in which they are created are local variables. The variables which are directly created under the class and can be accessed throughout the class are called as global variables. And in that global variables, if you provide static keyword, it will become a static global variable. If you don't provide the static keyword, it will become a instance global variable. So hope guys, with practical demonstration, I've answered this question for you. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye bye.